My former coach at the University of Minnesota, Jim Dutcher, he had a basketball camp down in Northfield, which ironically is south of the Twin Cities. But
bit amusing, isn't it?
May have heard of Jesse James. They robbed the bank at Northfield.
Oh, there you go.
So anyway, yeah, there's a St. Olaf University is down there, a small school. So I was down there working the basketball camp, and, my agent said, well, where are you going to be? So I told him and gave him the athletic director's number because it's right by the gym. Sure enough, someone comes running in. Hey, Engler, he got drafted by the Warriors, and they're on the phone.
So that's how you first found out?
Yeah. So I went in and talked to him. So it was pretty crazy, yeah.
Then you are in Australia right now.
You're talking NBA basketball. You're talking great teams. You're talking great individual players.
Takes it off, and there's number 23, and of course Johnny goes nuts.
So I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now.
I just tried to go out there and play my game.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Adam. I don't like anybody. I'm not a people person.
Strand, you made the pass, yes. Christian, can you catch the ball? Yes.
All the stars were aligned and all the muscles fired at the right time, and I was able to get off the ground and throw one down.
I was saving that as a surprise for you.
And now, introducing your host for In All Airness, Adam Ryan.
Welcome to episode 78. Thanks for joining me. Today, I'm happy to welcome Chris Engler to the show. We discuss his life in basketball. He is very open and honest, and I'm confident you'll enjoy his insight and personality. For more than half of the 1980s, Chris played with various NBA franchises. Between stints at the highest level, he also competed in the CBA and travelled internationally too. He recalls memories of his part in a classic Kevin McHale story before we round out our conversation reminiscing about his back-to-back gold medals at the World Masters Games, one of which was awarded here in Australia in 1994. Towards the end of the episode, I'll share another great podcast review. You can add yours by visiting inallairness.com/review. Show notes for this episode, including links to numerous topics covered, are at inallairness.com/78. Now, on to the show. My guest today was a standout at the University of Wyoming, and he spent 5 seasons in the NBA. Along the way, he had stops in the CBA, played internationally, and also won gold at the World Masters Games in Brisbane, here in Australia, in 1994. Chris Engler, thanks for joining me.
Pleasure, Adam. I should add, too, I'm sorry, but we also won gold in 98 in Portland.
Oh, well, there you go. Multiple golds at the World Masters, even better. I look forward to asking you about that, and particularly your time here in Australia, a bit over 20 years ago. Now, I've researched in depth in the last day or so after we had a chance to connect, and I really appreciate you taking time to chat with me. I found out about your high school career, and I read that you took part in some track and cross-country sports as well, aside from basketball. But before we even get to your high school days, you were born in Stillwater, Minnesota, from what I understand, and that's where you're based now. You've returned back home. Do you mind just talking about your early days and what sort of sports and activities you might have been involved with at a younger age?
Sure. Well, actually, I grew up in South Minneapolis, Minnesota. Not the inner city, but in the city.
Mm-hmm.
We had a neighborhood full of kids, so we played basketball and, a form of baseball, wiffle ball, plastic bat and ball. So we played in our alley there, so we wouldn't hurt any windows, break any windows or anything. And played that, and we played a lot of street hockey. So in the summer, we had a plastic puck and nets and stuff, so we played that. And we played basketball as well, and we played tackle football with no pads. So a lot of sports. A lot of kids my age, and my cousins, the Herps, lived about a block away. We played with them a lot too. So I mean, it was really an idyllic childhood from that standpoint. And get a plug in here for a former classmate at Incarnation. I went to a Catholic school, Adam, in Minneapolis, and his name was Paul Westerberg. He was the lead for the Replacements.
Oh, there you go. Okay, when you said Westerberg there, just for a split second, I did think of the band. So
yeah, so that was cool.
Small world.
And then we moved to Stillwater my sophomore year.
Aha, okay. So you were born in Stillwater, is that correct? Or at least according to basketballreference.com, that's your place of birth?
Yeah, actually, no, it's Minneapolis, but I was actually adopted as a child. My parents knew that I was coming, before I was born, And so you could definitely say basketball was in my roots. Both my parents played it and loved it, my adoptive parents, the only parents I've had. And then actually I got adopted on St. Patrick's Day, and my mom's home team was down to play in the state tournament, which is a big deal. So kind of a lot of basketball connections there. Some early on.
Yeah. Of course, you're a 7-footer, so by the time I think you were a high school senior, you were close to 6'11" or thereabouts. And but at what age did you really start to stand out above the crowd in terms of your height?
Yeah, I believe it was between my 8th and 9th grade year. I was 5'11", and then I grew to 6'5".
Wow.
Quite a growth spurt there, about 6 inches. And then you'll get a kick out of this. I was, as a sophomore, I was 6'6", 140 pounds.
I read that you actually, you went on some sort of like a protein building regime and ate up to 6 meals a day and bulked up considerably between that time you just mentioned there and your senior year, where I think you filled out to, well, actually you can probably fill in the gaps. What sort of weight did you end up getting up to, and in more of a basketball playing size?
Yeah, so I was 6'6", 140 my sophomore year, and about 6'8", 185 my junior year, and I got up to 215 my senior year. So, definitely better, still pretty light, definitely better. Then I got up to about 225. I started lifting weights a lot. So we had a football coach, George Thole, and he and my high school basketball coach, Dwayne Mychal, were really big into weights in the 70s. And so that was pretty unheard of for basketball, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
Because I did squats and, power cleans and, bench presses and stuff. And so, a lot of athletes, basketball guys weren't doing that at that time. And it really helped me, coordination and strength and stuff. And as you mentioned, I ran cross country and track to also help that.
In terms of your high school sporting career, as you mentioned there, you did a bit of cross country and also some track to help with your coordination and whatnot. I've seen your name listed in some of the Minnesota State High School League record books, and in one particular game you've grabbed 32 rebounds in, I think it might have been as a senior in 1977. I think you appeared in back-to-back state tournaments in Minnesota or in Minneapolis.
That's correct.
From what I've read, you were the leading scorer, averaging 27 points a game as a senior during that second of those tournament appearances. Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. I had two other seniors play with me, Brian Harvey and Dan St. Clair, but we were the only seniors that year because we had a lot of good younger players, good sophomore players, and a couple of good juniors. So I was really the only senior that played a lot that year. The year before, we had quite a few seniors, and it's kind of fun. That's a nice group of guys. I get to see them in the summers quite a bit. One of my good friends, Bob Bliss, he lives in Japan on Okinawa and teaches U.S. military personnel's children at a military base there. And he's coached there quite a bit too. And but anyway, he was a really solid player for us. So it's really fun to see those guys over the years in the summer play golf and have a frosty one. So it's a good time.
I like that. As far as those state tournaments go, how far into the tournaments did you progress when you're in those high school days?
Let's see. I think our first tournament, my junior year, I think we lost our first game. We won our second, and then we lost to Prior Lake, who ended up winning the championship. I think the next year, my senior year, they won it. They had two brothers, the Peterson brothers, and both of them were Division I basketball players. They were both 6'10".
Wow.
1 year apart as brothers, but they were both very good players. So that's probably one of the best state tournaments that Minnesota ever had because Kevin McHale was in that one.
I was going to ask you about Kevin because you've got links with him in the not too distant future after these high school days. At what stage did you actually first meet with Kevin?
Well, really going into my freshman year at the University of Minnesota. See, I started out at the University of Minnesota and then transferred to Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
I knew Kevin there, and we've been friends. We don't stay in touch anymore, really. But it was probably about 4 years ago. A friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, McHale's here playing the Stillwater Country Club." I used to be a member there, and so I went over there and he was in the bar, so I said, tell him I'm coming in hot. So he waited for me, and so we had a nice visit. And he's a character, so it's always good to talk to him.
Yeah, definitely. Now, from what I can tell, you spent 2 seasons with the Minnesota Golden Gophers, as you were saying there, and in each of those seasons you played 8 games in limited minutes. You were behind 2 outstanding 6'10" guys by the names of Mychal Thompson and, of course, the aforementioned Kevin McHale, who were absolutely dominant in those couple of seasons. But what was the experience like being on that roster for those couple of years? I believe that you felt to be obviously quite stifled, limited minutes, I guess, because of the greatness of those 2 guys.
Oh, definitely. One of my problems, Adam, in my career is that I developed late. My sophomore year, I only played on the sophomore team and the junior varsity in high school because of, our coach. I was the only taller guy. So he was just hoping, something might happen. We got lucky, it did. But, and so, I got better, obviously, my junior year and then better my senior year. But I was always seemed like I was behind a couple of years as a result of that because I had the growth spurt later. I went to the university and I actually walked on my first year there, my freshman year. See, my dad was a huge Gopher fan. He loved all University of Minnesota sports. He was an architect and he went to the University of Minnesota for architecture. So for me to be able to play there was amazing because we used to have season tickets and go to all the games. See?
Right.
So, it was kind of like a dream come true. But when I got there, like you say, I was just too far down as a reserve, and they kept recruiting. And I actually helped recruit Randy Brewer there, knowing that, it was time for me to either stay on the team and, be somebody who had played for the Gophers and, stay in town or try and do something on my own. And so I opted for that and, was very fortunate, obviously, to land at Wyoming. But, still those 2 years at the University of Minnesota were great because I met so many super people that are still dear friends, just at the university itself. Would never trade that. But going out to Wyoming turned out to be a blessing. That was that just keeps on giving.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm pleased to hear that. And just for some perspective here, I did a bit of number crunching last night. In your first season with Minnesota, as I was saying, with Mychal Thompson and Kevin McHale, they averaged over 35 points and 18 rebounds a game between them. So it's pretty hard to find some time on the rotation there when you've got 2 guys like that are absolutely outstanding. And of course, Mychal Thompson went on to be the number 1 draft pick in the 1978 NBA draft to Portland. And then McHale went number 3 overall, I think it was, to Boston in 1980. But pretty cool to hear that you also had links with Randy Brewer, and of course you'd cross paths with him again in years to come in the NBA. And I think you also were teammates with Trent Tucker as well, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Oh, it is. Yeah, good old Trent was there. So he was a freshman when I was a sophomore.
Ah.
Coach Dutcher had recruited quite a group of players. That class was considered the best recruiting class in the United States that year. And so I kind of knew the writing was on the wall because they recruited a center, Gary Holmes, out of Miami. Great guy. So funny because a lot of those guys from Miami still live up here. Oh, the poor guys in the winter, I tell you. But
the stark contrast between Miami and Minnesota almost goes without saying, and I'm in Australia and I know that. So, yeah, some very chilly winters.
Indeed.
So you mentioned how you moved across to Wyoming. I think you had to sit out the 1980 season, if that's correct, and then you played 2 years on the court with the Wyoming Cowboys.
Yes.
Do you mind just sort of talking about how your first season on court was with Wyoming? You made a big difference in terms of the amount of minutes you got to play and also the impact that you had on the team. As you were saying, you're really starting to develop, and if you only had another extra year or so to play at Wyoming, then I'm sure that would have even held you in better stead heading into a possible NBA career. You made the NCAA tournament in both seasons, if I'm not mistaken, too.
Yeah, we had great teams. In fact, September 2015, our 1981 team was inducted into the Wyoming Athletic Hall of Fame, and it was really fun. Most of the guys made it back, and our great coach Jim Brandenburg, was there. Boy, it was just, it's as if you're family in so many ways, Adam. I had the same thing with my family. My mom's side, I had 51 first cousins.
Oh, wow.
Crazy. But when we see each other, we just pick up from where we left off the last time. It's just one of those things. It was the same with these guys. I mean, it was just wonderful. And it was so nice to introduce my lovely wife and daughter to everybody too, and meet their kids and their wives. And just, it was totally awesome. So, but the experience was, I learned a lot out there. I'll tell you, it's kind of a cool story. Coach Brandenburg, when he got hired there, I think, a year before he took me as a transfer. There were two players there, Charles Bradley, who was a number 1 pick by Boston in 81, and then another great player, Kenny Ollie. Kenny was about 6'6", 6'7", and could jump out of the gym. Just a great guy, but he is very, very religious, and he's a minister today. So he just did not want to pursue, basketball beyond that. He had another calling, so to speak. So otherwise you would have heard his name more. I think he could have maybe possibly made it because he in the NBA eventually, just because of his defense and rebounding were just phenomenal. But we had those two guys, and what happened is they were going to transfer because they had had such a negative experience with the coach prior to Coach Brandenburg. And before Coach Brandenburg took the job, he said, I got to talk to those two guys. And they kept hiding on him. He couldn't track them down. So finally he did. And he said, look, guys, what do you want? And he said, well, they both basically said, this has been kind of a joke here. We've had guys that just kind of go out. They're there for the scholarship money and to go drink beer. They don't work hard at it. Those two guys did. And they said, we're tired of it. So they gave them, coach went through the roster and said, okay, what about this guy, this guy, this guy? So they ended up, about 3 or 4 guys that they really thought could be recoverable, so to speak, plus those two guys. So he said, geez, I got to recruit here because we're going to be down some guys. So he ran off a bunch of guys. Basically, he told them this. He said, okay, next year, it's a big change year. We're going to be in some games. We're going to get blown out, but we're going to get my program figured out here. The second year, we're going to compete. The third year, we'll win the conference. He said it so confidently, they bought it, and that's exactly what happened.
You were 24-6 in the 1981 season, and then were 23-7 in 1982. Were you back-to-back WAC conference champs?
We were.
And then also made it to the second round of the NCAA Tournament in each of those 2 seasons as well. What do you recall from that first taste of March Madness? I think you had a 35-point win over Howard in round 1 before you bowed out in a tough loss. I think it was 2 points to Illinois when scores were tied with only 3 seconds left in the game. So what do you remember from that time there, Chris?
Yeah, just great. Just a phenomenal year. Certainly my best basketball friend and one of my best friends ever, Bill Garnett, who was the 4th pick in the 1982 draft by Dallas. Just a great player. He came on, and of course we had Kenny and we had Charles, and then we had a guard named Mike Jackson. Mike, unfortunately, blew his knee out in 1983. The irony is today they probably could have just scoped it, and he'd have been fine. But unfortunately, he didn't get the best treatment, and his career really suffered as a result of that. He was just a tremendous athlete. He could high jump. He high jumped 7 feet in high school.
Wow.
Yeah, and he could shoot the lights out. And his brother is Danny Jackson, who I believe won 2 World Series. I think he won one. He might have won one with St. Louis and one with Kansas City.
Talented siblings.
Yeah, yep. And he was a starting pitcher. I know he won at least one. He may have won 2 World Series championships as a member of the roster and a starting pitcher to boot. So, I mean, the athletics was certainly in his blood, and he's also a great golfer and a tremendous guy. The talent on that team was pretty amazing, and Coach Brandenburg was able to put it all together, and we were just a ferocious team. We had a change in strength coaches. Steve Maples was this fellow's name, and I think he's from Alabama, and just a great guy, but did he push us. We would do 1 set only per movement. So, one bench press, one squat, but to total and complete exhaustion. I'm not talking about doing 500 reps or anything. I'm talking about maximum weight and, maybe 5 or 6 reps. And then there's fellows helping you until you completely burn out. I mean, I remember the first 3 or 4 times we did it, grown men crying.
Wow.
Walking back from the weight room, I fell down once, and my teammates had trouble helping me up because I was cramped so bad. It was so intense.
Very full on.
Oh, what it did for us mentally was just amazing. All of a sudden our games picked up in intensity in the off season, and we knew, okay, this totally sucks, but it's going to make us better, and it just did. And plus, we played at the highest altitude of any university in the United States at 7,200 feet.
Wow, okay.
We were in incredible shape, plus we had altitude.
So you had a couple of things on your side there too.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned how it was a good off-season, which set you up for the next season. In 1982, you again made it to the NCAA Tournament. There was a 3-point first-round win over the University of Southern California.
Right.
And in that game, you tied for leading scorer and rebounder with 17 points and 9 boards. And then in round 2, you were matched up against the mighty Georgetown Hoyas.
Yes.
Led by future NBA All-Star and a teammate of yours when you were a rookie with the Warriors, Sleepy Floyd.
That's right, Sleepy, yeah.
And, of course, future Hall of Famer Patrick Ewing. You led your team in that game with 14 points and 5 rebounds, only losing by 8 points to the eventual NCAA finalist. So what do you remember about going up against a freshman, I believe it would have been, Patrick Ewing?
I look back my time at the University of Minnesota with Kevin McHale and Mychal Thompson, both very good shot blockers. Mychal was an amazing shot blocker in the low post. He just had a knack for being able to, when a guy went up for a shot on him, when he made a move, he could block his shot. Most shot blockers are pretty good when they're coming on help side defense. Mm-hmm. But Mychal was really good at doing that to his man, the man he's guarding, which is kind of a unique thing. So Ewing was the same. Thank God for head fakes and he was a freshman and I was a senior. So
So he bought on a few of your fakes?
Yeah, what I remember is the score was, I think we were down 1 with 1:30 to go. And we came down and we worked the ball around, and our really good guard, Mike Jackson, got a nice look, and it just in and out. It almost went in for the lead. It didn't. They got the rebound and stormed down, and they got a pretty quick basket. So then it's a 3-point game, and then we just, we were playing some catch up, and they ended up winning by 8, I believe. But we were really close in that game, and that was frankly the closest game they had until the championship game.
A very competitive effort, to say the absolute least. I tried to find some footage of the game last night. There's a couple of Georgetown games from that 82 tournament, but they're more, I think, in the Final Four and obviously the championship game against Michael Jordan and James Worthy, Perkins, etc. But couldn't find the footage. It would have been great to see. But do you have many of your games from Wyoming at all on videotape or DVD these days? Or
no, not really. And I know that the university, I think, has put them in the archives. They're available, so I kind of want to show my wife, Kara.
Oh, definitely.
Because it was so fun. And then what I do remember, Adam, just still brings tears to my eyes. But when we lost, Coach kind of gave us, we had our get-together. And so we went to the showers, and my dad came in because he had come to Utah for the game. And so it was great to see him. But I remember crying because I kind of realized that it was over. I love these guys, and we'd never have the same relationship again, because we wouldn't be back together as teammates because I was graduating, and so was Bill and some other guys. So, but anyway, a crowd, all the Wyoming fans gathered outside the locker room and were chanting WYO, WYO, even though we lost.
Wow. That's great support.
Yeah, unbelievable. They're just great people.
Good to hear these sort of memories, even a good 30 plus years later. That these sort of things are still deep in the memory banks.
It's hard to believe it's been that long, I tell you.
What fascinates me sometimes is that when I'm chatting with guests, and I absolutely love talking with guys who aren't the really well-known, high-profile players. I think stories like yourself, they're just fascinating. So I love hearing them. So it's really great to hear the recall that you have from games that took place, the best part of 3 decades ago. So it's special moments for you, of course, and I really appreciate you sharing these with me and the listener today. So thank you for that. You left Wyoming averaging just under 10 points and 6 rebounds a game in only 26 minutes per contest after you played those 2 seasons with the Cowboys. And this leads up to the 1982 NBA draft, which was held in late June in New York. James Worthy went number 1 to the LA Lakers. And as you said, your Wyoming teammate Bill Garnett was number 4 overall to the Dallas Mavericks. You were picked in the 3rd round, 60th overall by Golden State. Heading into the draft, Chris, what expectations did you have about your place in the NBA?
Oh, I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was a pipe dream.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So what were you doing after you'd finished that last game against the Hoyas? What happened between then and when you got to draft day, and how did you maybe then get onto the radar of some of these teams that were interested in ultimately selecting you?
Well, Charles Bradley had signed with a group called ProServe the year before, and then they also signed Bill Garnett. So I think kind of as a courtesy, they said that they would help me as well. And then so they had, I think it may have been the first year, the Chicago draft camp. Trying to remember when that was. Cripes, must have been early June or something. So they had all these guys that were, certainly the first rounders weren't going to show up there because they might lose traction, so to speak, but guys like me might move up. So I went to that camp, and my agent said, hey, there's some buzz that you might go in the 2nd round even. I said, oh, cripes. Right. Sure. But anyway, so, went pretty well. So I thought, okay. So anyway, my former coach at the University of Minnesota, Jim Dutcher, he had a basketball camp down in Northfield, which ironically is south of the Twin Cities. But
bit amusing, isn't it?
May have heard of Jesse James. They robbed the bank at Northfield.
Oh, there you go.
So anyway, yeah, there's St. Olaf University is down there, a small school. So I was down there working the basketball camp, and, my agent said, well, where are you going to be? So I told him and gave him the athletic director's number because it's right by the gym. Sure enough, someone comes running in. Hey, Engler, he got drafted by the Warriors, and they're on the phone.
So that's how you first found out?
Yeah. So I went in and talked to him. So it was pretty crazy, yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Well, that was a lot of fun, but a lot different than these guys waiting in New York all the time and stuff. So
I love hearing this sort of stuff. So your first-year coach was Al Addles, if I'm not mistaken.
The legend.
And I think your assistant was Johnny Bark, who then would be your coach the 2nd season with the Warriors. You had guys in a team like Joe Barry Carroll and Purvis Short were 2 of the main scorers at that time. What do you sort of remember from that rookie season? You played 100 games in total with the Warriors, which is a nice round number, 54 of those as a rookie. What did you make of that transition to the pros and your first couple of seasons there playing for the Golden State Warriors, Chris?
Well, I mean, it was just incredible. As a kid, I remember Eddie DiGregorio came through town. They played an exhibition game. He played for Kansas City, I believe, at the time, and my dad took me to that game, and I remember thinking, wow, that'd be really cool. And I always admired Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell and those guys. So, to actually be playing in the league that they played in was just, I had to keep pinching myself in many ways. It was incredible. I remember our first game of the season, my rookie year, we played at LA, and they had won the championship. They had a ring ceremony, so they had all this stuff going on. World Be Free never liked Magic for some reason, and so at the ring ceremony, World would sit there, and he was just mad. So I think he said, I'm going to kill Magic today. So I think he had 32 or something that game. But the thing I'll never forget is Purvis Short came down for a wide open layup on a steal, and he threw up a finger roll that must have gone 8 feet above the rim, and then nothing but net. Wide open, my college coach, Brandon, would have gone nuts, dunk it or lay it in. Make sure, so I had a timeout. I pulled him to the side and said, Perv, man, that was sweet, but what were you thinking? He said, Felt it, big man. Felt it. So it was a different world.
I think Purvis Short's one of those 1980s players who's much underappreciated. Was a fantastic scorer. Just had a rainbow jump shot and was money.
Oh, gorgeous shot. Silky smooth. His game was a lot like him. You know, he's a really smooth guy, very nice guy, and very soft-spoken, and he was fun to play with.
There's a great website, basketballreference.com. Wouldn't be able to do my research for the chats that I have without it. It's just awesome. So I had a look through the roster of the Warriors for your first and second seasons, and I noticed that you were teammates with a former guest and friend of the show, Rick Brown.
Yeah.
Some other interesting names, and one in particular on your roster as a rookie, I believe, was Derek Smith. You were fellow rookies. He tragically died when he was only in his mid-30s.
Ugh.
Did you get to spend much time with Derek prior to him being waived? I think he got waived before the second season, but he was a great talent, but tragically died way too young.
Oh, I agree. One of the greatest people you'd ever meet. Just, came from tragic poverty. Brutal, and made something of himself, and just never complained. Just worked hard, earned everything that he got. Funny, warm-hearted, but just a hard worker. Oh, yeah, he was really fun. We both had, pretty good work ethics, and so we bonded, and we roomed together quite a bit, off and on road trips and stuff, and really nice to get to know him. And fun to see his son follow in his footsteps and also win a national championship at Duke. And, it was awful when he passed away. I'll never forget that. Just, so tragic. He was coaching and, sad.
Very, just mid 30s, and, such obviously a terrible shock at the time, no doubt. And still to this day, he's remembered very fondly. Moving on to a much more upbeat moment, I'd love to ask you about the following. On July the 1st, 1984, in front of more than 19,000 fans in your home state of Minnesota, you were part of a team of NBA stars that challenged the 84 Team USA in one of their pre-Olympic exhibition games.
Yeah.
They only defeated you guys 94-90, and it was a nationally televised game from what I've read. I'd love to see footage of it, but I have yet to do so. You also reunited with former Minnesota Golden Gophers, Kevin McHale and Trent Tucker. How was that experience, being part of such a big exhibition against that fantastic amateur team at the time for the build-up to the 84 Olympics there, Chris? It
was surreal, and I'll throw another bit to it that is interesting, is that was the same weekend as Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA tour.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, it opened in St. Paul. Crazy. We had a friend, Joe Henry, Big Joe Henry. He's a DJ out in New Jersey. Great guy, but he used to work at NBC. And so he said, I'm getting us tickets. So he got us tickets, and it was pretty incredible. So Kevin McHale, myself, and then Flip Saunders was there, the former Timberwolves coach, who tragically died. And then one of the great guys that we used to hang out with at the U, just a great guy, love him to death, Mike Cervoni. Bones Too Cool Sir Bones is his nickname.
That's a great one.
His kid actually is in the New York Times. So if you Google Mychal Cervoni, Cervony, at New York Times, his kid comes up because they went out to that concert out in Palm Springs. The Desert, what was that called? With Neil Young and the Stones and the Who and Dylan. They all played out there.
Wow.
It's a pretty cool story that these kids, they spent their last dimes trying to get out there, and they made it. Anyway, we were all there at Springsteen's opening of the whole tour. So we got to see Dancing in the Dark a couple times because they were doing the video.
Fantastic memories there.
The tragedy is this. I wasn't quick enough. McHale had to go to the restroom, and so he just pushed this door open, and I was kind of looking the other way, and if I would have gone in with him, it was Springsteen's dressing room.
Oh.
I missed it by that much.
Oh, jeez. A nice little Get Smart reference there too.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Right. Yeah, but anyway, the big man came out, their sax player, and so I got to talk to him a little bit. Then also Niels Lofgren. was also a guitarist. So it was kind of fun to talk to him. No, so that was really fun. And then, of course, the game was excellent. Jordan was on that team, needless to say. And, gosh, they were loaded for bear. And we were too. McHale and I think Magic played in that one. And
yep.
There may be a picture of me with Magic and Jordan. We're trying to block Jordan's shot, and he passed or something. But it's kind of fun to be in the picture with two legends like that.
I know the photo you're talking about, and I'll put a copy of that photo into the show notes for this episode. Definitely worth having a look at. Yeah, it's a great photo. You're there playing D against Jordan, and I think you got the full beard going at the time too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, some great memories there. Because that game was nationally televised as well, and given all your links to Minnesota and then reuniting with some of these former players that you were associated with back in the college days, have you had a chance to ever see that game since, or that's one that's escaped your grasp as well?
Yeah, no, I haven't actually. I don't think I got into much, but it was just fun to be, with the guys. And I had to lobby a little hard to get in there. I said, hey, look, I'm from there. Oh, because they always thought I was from Wyoming,
Yeah, gotcha.
Like I say, the connection with the Springsteen tour and all my old buddies back at the University of Minnesota. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's some great memories there, and it sounds like a big couple of days coinciding with the boss as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Good to hear. Now, I'm just going through the timeline here of your career. You were waived by the Warriors in late October of 84, which was only a few days before the regular season would be commencing. And according to basketballreference.com, you signed as a free agent with New Jersey just before Christmas of that year, and you played 7 games with the team. Just your second game as a New Jersey player, you witnessed some Bernard King magic. It was Christmas Day of 84, and he scorched the Nets for 60 points. Incredible. He was like 19 of 30 from the field, and he hit a slew of free throws as well at Madison Square Garden. But the Knicks actually lost the game, 120 to 114. Do you remember that Christmas Day game and seeing Bernard King light it up in front of the New York faithful?
Oh, you're going to love this story. Do I ever? Our coach, Stan Allback, just a great guy, but he says, hey, he's hot right now. Okay. I don't give a shit if he has 60 as long as we win. He said that before the game, and that's what happened.
Oh, how good's that? That's fantastic. He's preempted the actual point total.
Oh, yeah. Well, after the game, he came into the locker room, and we were all down on our knees paying homage. Swami, Swami. He was cracking up. That was my favorite time, probably. I got lots of minutes on those 210 days there. When I first got picked up, I think I flew into Philadelphia. I think Michael Ray Richardson was there, and he said, what's Cowboy doing? He said, he's our 8th guy, you moron. Because you had to have 8 guys on the roster, league rule. They had so many guys sick and hurt that that was it. So, they basically checked my pulse and said, okay, you're good to go. And it was incredible. And then the coach is sitting there, okay, we're going to run these 2 offenses when you're in there. And I'm thinking, I'm going to play. I'm going to play tonight. It was incredible. Good fit. They had a guy, their assistant coach, John Killalay, just a great guy as well. And so the guys were just tremendous. There was a bond there. Daryl Dawkins had been hurt. And so, I was basically kind of in for him. They got along well. They liked each other, and it was a fun team to be a part of, even though they were banged up at the time.
You had some very unique personalities on that roster there in New Jersey. I'm not sure how well you recall certain games from throughout your NBA career. However, in early 85, you had your NBA career high of 14 points, and you had 6 or 7 field goals in just 23 minutes against the Atlanta Hawks. I think it was at Atlanta.
Yeah.
Do any memories of that game spring to mind, or is it a bit of a blur in terms of what you can remember doing at that time?
I definitely remember that game because we were pretty loose going in, and I wondered if maybe we were a little too loose, guys kidding around a little bit, and we were just getting our butts kicked. And so Coach put me in, and I just went in, and they put me in positions to succeed. I was in there with the starters, and then they pulled the starters, and they kept me in there, and then we crept back into the game, they kept me in again. So I'm in there with, Michael Ray and, Otis Birdsong and Buck Williams. I'm in there with all those studs.
Yeah, they had some great names.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just great. Yeah. I think Albert King was playing too. So, we ended up losing, but I just remember so vividly, getting the opportunity.
This is why I enjoy chatting with players like yourself who didn't have the massive NBA career that everybody instantly can recall. It's sometimes the most fascinating stories are just the behind the scenes minutia of a player's career that still was in the top 300 or 400 players in the world for a period of time, 5 to 10 years worth.
Yep.
And it's just great to sort of hear some of these stories. So I appreciate you sharing them with me and with our listener as well. Only about 10 days later, mid-January of 85, you signed the first of 2 10-day contracts with the Chicago Bulls. Now, our listener straight away will probably know that means that you shared some court time with one Michael Jeffrey Jordan, then rookie star of the Bulls, of course. How did the opportunity to play with Chicago and sign with the team there come to be? You had 3 games with the Bulls. It might sound insignificant to some people, but I find it absolutely fascinating, and I'd just love to know what you made of that stay with the Bulls during that really important and historical season for Michael Jordan and Chicago.
Yeah, that was awesome. New Jersey felt bad having to waive me, but it was one of those years where I kept replacing guys that weren't quite healthy. They kept coming back on me. They went out for the full year, So Caldwell Jones, I think, had broken his hand or something, so I came in there. But I think Chicago said, hey, look, we got to get somebody for Caldwell Jones, and they called around, and so I think New Jersey really put in a good word for me.
That's great.
Which was, very classy of them. And so I got picked up by them, and the things I vividly remember is just, first of all, Jordan, his rookie year, played point guard a lot. He could distribute the ball. He could see the floor too. And, that's something that, might be lost on us a little bit, once he became the Jordan that we all know, the massive scorer and the dominant offensive and, in many ways defensively too player. He could definitely pass the rock. Yeah, he was a force. Just amazing. And, I remember sitting on the bench once with, unfortunately, the dearly departed Orlando Woolridge.
Yeah.
Where he just kind of sitting there, and Mychal went up, and he just kept going up and up and up, and he was kind of far from the basket. And so it's just one of those moments, and we were sitting next to each other on the bench, we just look at each other. What's he going to do? And he just threw it down so hard. We just stood up and we're just, man, you believe that? He was doing some stuff that nobody had ever seen. He had a lot of career doing just that, so it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then I remember in practice, too, I think he just played 44 minutes the night before, and, the coaches were mad. I think we'd lost him. All right, we're going to scrimmage. So Michael says, I'm picking team. No, we don't. Got a game tomorrow. You're going to go 48. We don't want you to play, He's so competitive. So they pick teams. And so literally it was tied. It was a war. Guys just going at it hard. They literally had to pull him, drag him off the floor. Because he said, no, we're going to win this. It's a scrimmage in the middle of the season. For me, it matters because, you got to be ready. You got to play hard. You got to be physically fit because you never know. But for him, that's how competitive he is. Yeah.
Stories of his maniacal practice mentality obviously were very accurate, and he just wanted to win and compete at all costs, whether it's on the floor in an actual game or just during a scrimmage or a intra-club practice session.
Have you ever seen the 30 for 30s?
Yeah, definitely. I've seen a majority of those. They're fantastic.
Have you seen the one, the Pistons, the Bad Boys?
I have. Absolutely fantastic. Loved it.
Oh, yeah. What I love is when they show, they do the Jordan rules in Detroit, so they bang them and they play very physical with them. And so what's he do? He starts hitting the weights. And so he just blew that myth out of the water about basketball. Remember back when I was talking about the 70s when it was pretty new for players to be hoopsters to be lifted. He was power cleaning. He's benching. He's squatting. The day of games sometimes. Just crazy. So Look at how durable he was. Pretty amazing.
The general thought was try and force him into the middle, I think, and get him to drive into the lane and then just beat him up. But he became more and more powerful as the years went on. And as you said, his weightlifting and strength regime just continued. I think that was under probably Tim Grover by the time it sort of came to the absolute peak as he was starting to win all those championships.
Yeah, he really got those guys going on the weights, and I think that proved the difference for that team.
I think towards the end of the 85 season, you joined Milwaukee as a free agent, but I also read that you signed a 10-day contract with the Clippers after the Bulls but before the Bucks, if I've got the timeline right. How did that actually go down, and were you training with the Clippers but didn't get playing time, or what actually happened there before you joined the Bucks?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I got picked up again after the Bulls. I think Walton might have been hurt. I don't know why, but I was back in the CBA. See, I think I was playing with the Casper Wildcatters. So then I was back down there after I got cut from the Bulls, and then I got picked up by the Clippers for that 10-day. And I don't know what happened there. I never really got much time. I never really got a feel for what the heck was going on, and then I was gone. And then I finished up the season with the Wildcatters. I think we made it to the second round of the playoffs, maybe, and then we lost. And so I just remember my brother Matt, I think, flew out. He drove home with me because he was on spring break, and we hit a snowstorm. He actually missed the first day of class at the University of Minnesota for the second quarter. They had trimesters, so maybe it was the third quarter. But yeah, the poor guy. I get home, and it's April Fool's Day, and someone calls and says, "Hey, it's the Milwaukee Bucks who want you to come down and sign a 10-day." And I said, "Yeah, right." So I said, "Give me your phone number, please." So I took down their phone number and I called them back because it would be just like my buddies at home to pimp me with a fake call. So anyway, it turned out to be the Bucks.
It was legit.
Yeah. So they said, "Well, when can you be here?" I said, "Well," I said, "Okay, if I have some of Mom's home cooking tonight and I'll drive there tomorrow. What time's practice?" So I don't know. They said 1 o'clock or something. So anyway, I made it there and signed a 10-day. And then I just said, "Look, I don't want to do another 10-day after this." So I've done enough 10 days this year, and they were cool with it. So about 5 days in, I think they said, "No, we like you. We need you the rest of the year." So they signed me for the rest of the year, and it was really fun playing with Sid Moncrief and Junior Bridgman. Brew was there, Paul Mokeski, just great guys.
Now, you had some great players on that Bucks team, and you had one career playoff game, and it was with the Bucks in round 2 of the 85 playoffs against the Philadelphia 76ers. I think you played in game 1, perhaps, of that second round series. Do you remember much about the atmosphere of the playoffs, how that compared to regular season?
Well, it was so electric, of course, and then the Doc was still playing.
Yeah.
And Moses must have been there, probably Tony and Cheeks, and all those great players. So, yeah, it was really, really cool. That was electric. And then the series before, I think we actually played the Bulls. And so they were tapping my brain for ideas on what to do with Jordan. I said, "Well, good luck." He's so tough. I said, "We better worry about everybody else and just accept that he's going to get a certain amount."
That was a 4-game series. That first round against the Bulls, they might have won game 3, perhaps, back at Chicago Stadium. And then you wrapped it up in game 4, I think. I don't want to focus on Jordan too much because it's about yourself that we're chatting about, but you obviously played with him with the Bulls, then you actually got to sit on the opposition bench to watch him in his first playoff series. What was it like to sort of see him and his competitive drive? What do you remember about that?
Oh, just that you knew it was going to happen. He wanted it now. He's very competitive. He's just so fun to watch because he's a nice person too. So that's the other thing is, for him to have to suffer that horrible tragedy of his dad being murdered. Oh, it's brutal. But yeah, no, he was a very, just a great guy, and you just knew he was on the floor, that there was going to be a high ceiling for him.
When you mentioned the Wildcatters, Casper that's the city that they were based, but it was actually near or in Wyoming. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
You would have obviously had friends around that area, of course, and I think you said you were with your brother at one stage during that time with the Wildcatters. But was it fun to sort of head back to the CBA for a little bit, knowing that you can play at the highest level and then sort of demonstrate your skills in perhaps a few more opportunities at CBA level?
Well, it was, I'll be honest with you, it was frustrating because I had a really good training camp with the Warriors. And when I got cut, one of the things too is when you get cut that late, you're not going to get picked up, unless you got cut because it's a contract thing or something. They're in a rebuilding mode or whatever. And that's back then. They wouldn't do that now because of contracts, but just so big today versus what we played.
Oh, definitely.
Minimum when I started was 40,000. So I doubt anyone's making less than 800,000 today. So yeah, it's just nuts.
Yeah, remarkable. I was going to ask, I believe you headed over to Italy for the 85-86 season. So you were away from the NBA, but were you still actually signed with the Bucks at that time, or how did that work? And what was it like to head over to play internationally for that year?
Good question. I think I just signed a contract for the remainder of the season with the Bucks, so I don't think I had a contractual obligation to any special team. But actually, Coach Nelson had recommended that I do that. He said, "Go over there, go over and play. Work on your game, and and then come back." So I did go over there, and I think I played the exhibition season, and then I don't know 7 or 8 games into the season, they wanted a change. See, I played with Mark Landsberger.
Oh, yep, former Laker.
From the former Laker, yeah. He's from Minnesota as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I knew Mark because Mark first he played for the University of Minnesota. Man, I tell you what, if you think about the team that they could have had, Oberding, they had Mark Oberding, and he left after his first year at the university because the ABA, they signed him, I think the Conquistadors, maybe out of San Diego or.
Yes.
And he came from dirt poverty. I think his dad made maybe $8,000 a year working in a cheese factory.
Wow.
He realized, hey, what if I get hurt? So they're going to offer me this kind of money. I'm going to take it. So he left. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, at one point in time, if all these guys would have stayed, you could have had Landsberger, Oberding, Mychal Thompson, Ray Williams, Flip Saunders, and McHale.
Wow.
Playing on the same team. I mean, it would have been something.
Yeah, but, that would have been stacked.
Yeah, they would have been super deep. But yeah, so I played with Landsy. So we kind of had, in many ways, similar game, good rebounders, him obviously legendary rebounder, and that type thing. So they wanted to make a change. So Landsy had the bigger name, so I was out. And I kind of got hurt too, so I just came home and actually worked at the legislature as a page, Minnesota State Legislature. So I enjoyed that, but tried to get better, get ready for the next season. So, and then I think that next year I went into training camp with the Bucks, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 86, 87.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, based on what the timeline I'm looking at, yeah, definitely. So you mentioned there about that legislator. I read in numerous articles that even though you were perhaps tiring of being the king of 10-day contracts, I think is what Jack McCallum might have referred to you as in one of the Sports Illustrated articles I found researching for your career, but you were saving up to enter law school.
Yes.
You now are a registered lawyer, but your vocation now is teaching, but we'll get to that towards the end of the chat. But what I'm trying to say is your perseverance, I guess, and continuing to play these 10 days and signing for contracts here and there, all helped towards contributing to that cause of getting to law school. It
did. I'm very grateful for that. So, yeah, I definitely have plans for after I retired from hoops. And, a lot of people say, well, there are the great ones that get to walk away. For most of us, we get kicked away. So. But
you had the tenacity to hang around. When we do get to quickly chat about the World Masters Games, I noticed that the motto of those games was "The challenge never ends." And I think that perfectly summarized your stay in the NBA. So you were definitely a picture of consistency with trying to stay on those rosters and do what you can to then further your career beyond the game of basketball as well when it came to an end too.
Right. Yeah. It was a great run. I mean, I have no regrets. I have one, but I should have tried out with the Celtics when I had the opportunity, but I tried out with the Bullets. So.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting you say that, because I'm sure I found an image somewhere online, which was a photo of yourself wearing a Bullets jersey, but you didn't play for the Bullets, I don't believe. What part of your career was that? And you mentioned there about possibly having a chance to try out for the Celtics. Do you mind just elaborating a bit more on that and what sort of came of that opportunity?
Yeah, so I think that must have been, 87, 88 was my last year in the league for the Nets.
Yep.
And so I tried out with the Bullets in the summer, had a good tryout with them. And I think I went down to try out with the Heat, and I shouldn't have because I just had played so hard out in the East Coast for the Bullets. I shouldn't have also gone to Miami to try out. That was dumb because I'd done well enough there with the Bullets. And so anyway, the Bullets offered me, I think, $10,000 to come in to sign with them. And I got a call. I was sitting out I had bought a little townhouse in Roseville, Minnesota, near St. Paul, and was just sitting outside there grilling, I think, and I got a call, and they said, "Hey, Chris, this is the Celtics, and we're interested in signing you." And I said, "Well, I get this." I hadn't signed yet with the Bullets, and so I really thought back and forth on it, and I thought, well, if they're willing to put some money forward, maybe that's where I should go. And I regretted it ever since because I think I would have made that team. And then once you're on a good team like that, you could hang in there longer. But whatever, didn't work out. But I still had a real strong training camp with the Bullets. What happened is a guard came in and he played exceptionally well. They were going to keep a bigger player, but they decided, well, we better keep him. Dominique, I forget his last name. Good player, just played his butt off and played very well. So, but I got again cut right at the last couple of days. So if you get cut earlier, someone might pick you up to take a look. But right at the end, everyone's kind of firming their rosters. So that was pretty much it. And then I think I went to France after that, I believe, or did I go to the Rapid City Thrillers?
I don't know about the France part, but I know that on the timeline I'm looking at here on my notes, the Rapid City Thrillers was 88, 89 from what I can tell.
That was it. And so I played there, and then Flip Saunders was the coach who I'd known since, the 70s. And so as far as playing in the CBA goes, that was fun. The city's just great. I still have friends out there that we see occasionally. We drive through there sometimes to go to Denver so I can see them. So that was a good experience. We could have won the CBA title, but we had 3 guys get called up. Connor Henry.
Yes.
Yep, great player that played for the Celtics for a while. And he got called up overseas. And then Sidney Lowe from North Carolina State, he got called up. And then Kevin Williams got called up. Oh, gosh, if we'd have had those 3 guys. We had the best record in the league, so we would have won a CBA championship. But
oh, man. So just through circumstance and those guys achieving too much at the wrong time got them to call up, and you missed out on a possible CBA run there too with the championship.
Yeah, that's the tough thing about the CBA is you're trying to move guys up. I mean, that's it. Really what it's there for. And God bless them, they got called up. So
just harking back for a moment to the 86-87 season, I read a story that you mentioned how Milwaukee traded you to Portland, I think, in November of 86. But then you played 7 games, I think, with the Trailblazers, but then you found out at the team Christmas party, of all places, that they were going to be waiving you. Like, that was brutal when I read that.
Yeah.
Do you mind just recalling how you remember being told about that and what you thought at that time?
Well, I was bummed out, obviously, because a good bunch of guys there. Yeah, Jerome Kersey. Trying to remember the big guy there. Kevin.
Duckworth,
yeah, good guy. That's really was kind of my demise because I think they had traded for him, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal at the Christmas party. There's a DJ here that often says, can't thank you enough for the game. It guts me at the Christmas party. So that was harsh.
Oh, man. Because when I read it, I just had to do a double take. I thought, that is just brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a time and a place. Probably not at a Christmas party for the team that you're actually with at that stage.
Yeah, exactly.
And moving on a little bit, you mentioned France, which I wasn't aware of, but I know that in 91, 92, you were, at least at some stage, were playing in Sweden, if that's timeline's correct.
Yeah, so I had met this coach before, Ivan Duncan, believe it or not. That's his name.
Great name for a basketball coach.
Isn't it something?
It is.
Yeah, he was an assistant coach for Tarkanian at Long Beach State.
Pre-running Rebels, I guess, was it, for Jerry Tarkanian? Or?
Was, yep. And then Ivan also had been in Vietnam, and that kind of changed him forever. He was an advanced scout, so I mean, he used to tell us that, if you went into a Vietnamese post office, his picture would be there. Because he was basically there kind of looking for activity, and then he'd, put it on the map, and then they'd bomb it.
Oh, wow.
Because they're looking for Kong activity.
Mm.
And so, I mean, he had a tough job. I think that affected him emotionally and mentally for a long time. But he was a good guy, so he called me up and, said, hey, why don't you come out? He actually wanted me the year before, but I had started law school, so I connected him with John Stroder from University of Montana. Good guy. So anyway, Ivan called me up and said, hey, we'd like to have you this time. I had met my wife by that time. We hadn't quite got married, but we were going to. And so I asked her, I said, well, basketball's been a big part of my life. You could probably be wise for you to share that. So I took a year off law school, and Karen and I moved to Sweden, and we played there. So it was really fun.
Okay, fantastic. So you mentioned there that you'd done a year of law school and then took a year off to sort of round out your playing career. Did you have any other opportunities to have one last tilt at the NBA, or were you happy enough to then call it quits and focus on your post-playing career at that stage?
I'm thinking that was it. Oddly enough, I used to do basketball camps for the Timberwolves as well, and they had a bunch of guys get hurt in their summer league team or whatever, and so they just said, hey, you still in shape? And I had been working out, so I was still hooping in men's leagues and stuff. And so I said, sure. So I went out and, I helped them out. And wouldn't you know it, Bill Musselman said, yeah, we cut Engler. I hadn't even signed a contract. I was just helping them out, but I was playing well. I mean, I probably should have made the team.
Wow.
They actually asked me, do you want to go? And I said, no. I'm done. But then he said I got cut. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thanks for throwing me under the bus.
Yeah. Can't thank you enough for the job. Yeah, so brutal.
I mean, I guess you may have been tempted to return to play for your home state. I guess that might have had some allure to you before you finally decided to hang up the sneakers. Definitely.
But at the same time, I kind of realized that they're looking for new guys. And and I get it. I was ready to kind of move on.
Would you have crossed paths there with Australia's Luke Longley?
I never did. Of course I watched him when he played, but I don't think I ever ran across him as far as playing.
Yeah, just thought I'd ask. He's a friend of the show. He's been on the show a couple of times, and he's a great guy, Luke, and his first season was 91-92 with the T-Wolves after going, I should know, but it was top 10 at least in the 91 NBA draft. So moving on beyond your basketball career coming to an end, I assume you resumed and finished law school, and did you ever contemplate getting into the coaching or administration side of things in terms of basketball, or were you just happy to go into a new career?
Yeah, I don't know. I had this kind of idea that I wanted to sever myself in some way from basketball and kind of go a different direction. I don't know why I decided that, but so I did.
Mm-hmm. So
I practiced law for, I think, 3 years, and then just really didn't like it. I did family law, and so a lot of divorce. I've always liked kids, and so I just felt like they were kind of getting the raw end of the deal. So I kind of had to make a choice at that time in my life. Do I want to fish or cut bait is a classic line, but can I stay with it and make a difference and change it, or am I going to be part of the problem? And I feared that I'd just be part of the problem. I just really had a hard time being involved in a system that I think, frankly, doesn't help kids enough. So I decided to get into teaching.
I'm an elementary school teacher myself here in Australia. I have taught for 6 years full time, but at the moment I've stepped away from teaching, but I'll probably head back there at some stage in the future. So I can at least identify with you in that respect. But unfortunately, I was never 7 feet tall, so can't quite impose my will over the kids just by stature.
That ability is going away these days too. So fortunately, Adam.
You're in the high school, I think it's Stillwater area high school. Is that where you're associated at the moment?
It is indeed, yep.
Amongst other things, you're involved with teaching world history as well.
Yep, world history and also U.S. history, and I've taught law, and so it's been fun.
In terms of the history of basketball, you mentioned a couple of the names that you were following in your early years. Is there a couple of players that you looked up to and idolized as a youngster that you had a chance to meet in your later years when you were in the NBA?
Well, I met George Mikan.
Wow, okay. And
I got to meet Wilt Chamberlain, who was really, still is. I mean, how can you be 7'2", 320 and run a 10 flat 100? I mean, that guy was phenomenal.
Freak of nature. We talked about Jordan being a freak of nature, but Wilt was so many decades ahead of his time. Startling.
Oh, amazing, yeah. And then, of course, I got to play against Kareem, and, I always admired Bill Walton as well, so I got to meet him and know him a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, it was pretty incredible.
As you mentioned already, Walton and Kareem, of course, in the 80s, but you got to play against some of the all-time great big men in NBA history all throughout the 1980s. So that would have been quite an experience, I guess, being on the court there and in amongst all the tall timber.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think Kareem was maybe going for his 15,000th point or something, some major record. And all of us centers, we meet, okay, who's going to get scored on? It's going to go down in infamy. Because I don't know if you remember that classic Dr. J move on Landsberger for the Lakers where he makes that finger roll, wraps around him, and poor Mark, his jersey turns, and it spells it. It's right there, Landsberger.
Yeah.
We don't want to be that. Great move by the Doc.
Incredible hang time. I really appreciate your time to this point. I won't hold you for too much longer. It's just great to be able to chat about your career and memories in the game. But there's a particular story I'd just love for you to clarify because it's been doing the rounds for many years. And from all reports, in one of your first NBA games against your one-time roommate, I believe, too, at Minnesota, Kevin McHale, he whispered something to you as you both moved down the court in a game you played against the Celtics. What's your recollection of what he told you, and then how did that subsequent play unfold? Do you mind just elaborating on what actually took place?
Yeah, well, the first thing you have to know about Kevin is he's a scamp.
He seems like a bit of a joker.
Yeah, he is just a nut. Yeah, I'll just turn around and shoot it. I won't block it. Yeah, right. Anyway, what happened is, first of all, why is he even in the game if I'm in the game? But anyway, so they throw me the ball with a couple seconds left on the clock. So I just have to, it's not like I can make a move. The clock would go off. So I make the move, and of course he comes at me and blocks the shot. So the thing is, I think most people think I just trusted him. I didn't have any choice. I got the ball. So, of course, I'm mad after that. I'm mad because the guys throw it to me with 3 seconds left on the clock, as far as what I remember. Then, of course, I'm mad that, he's just preying on it. So, yeah, I mean, it's just classic Kevin.
It seems to sum him up quite well. Hijinks on and off the court on occasion. He seemed to be a quiet guy from a distance. Now he's just recently entered back into broadcasting, so now you get to sort of see his personality shine a bit more now that he's away from the intense nature of coaching.
Yeah, he's got a tremendous sense of humor, although that's been tempered a bit, after he lost his daughter tragically.
That was shocking, yeah.
Just awful. Jeez.
Just a couple more quick questions, if you don't mind. Basketball Digest had a regular feature. It was called The Game I'll Never Forget. Now, we may have already touched on it, but is there a particular game from your career that stands out above all others?
Well, I mean, as far as in the NBA, it would probably be that Atlanta game. And then I think we played maybe at Cleveland just after that. And then I also had my career high in rebounds. So the reason I like thinking about those two games is because I was playing at a high level right then in the NBA because I was getting time. I had been in the CBA just before that. So I had confidence, In other words, I know that I could do it, in the right circumstances. And, this guy named Marty Burns, another former NBA player, had a great line. My rookie year, he told me, sometimes you never get a chance. I didn't get a whole lot of chances, but when I, at least in that time when I did, I maximized it.
Yeah.
Just my luck. That it didn't matter because a better player was coming back. So
unfortunate timing, I guess, and circumstance, but at least all these years on that you could do it at the highest level, you could definitely more than hold your own. So I think that's important to look back on as well, all these years down the track, that you certainly could do it when the opportunity presented itself.
Right, yeah. So it was a lot of fun. And, everywhere I played hard, so no regrets. And, of course, the move to Wyoming was a great one as far as basketball. That was the key for me. And then just here at the University of Minnesota was great because of all the great friends that I've had, for life. That's been fantastic, too. So it was good that I got the opportunity in both places.
The other question that I like to ask near the end of these conversations, did you have any particular significance to the number that you wore on your jerseys throughout your career? I'll reel off a couple of numbers. You wore number 55 in high school, 54 at Minnesota, 55 back at Wyoming and into your pro career with the Warriors. And then I think you may have also had 34 and 50 as well throughout the other NBA teams you play with. So do you have any particular significance behind any of those numbers there, Chris?
Oh, I just love the double nickels, probably 55, mainly because back when I was in high school, the higher the number, the larger the jersey. So,
well, that makes sense.
54, you'd have an even number for home maybe and an odd number for away or vice versa. For some reason, they did it that way. So.
There might be something wrong with my mind, but I love to know the stories behind if there's any significance to some jersey numbers, and often there is something which is unique behind the scenes there, so that's good to know. We touched briefly at the start about your involvement in the World Masters Games. You took part in the 1994 Games here in Brisbane, Australia, which is only about 4 hours drive from where I am now in Coffs Harbour. And then you mentioned that you also were in the 1998 Games as well at Portland in Oregon, if that's correct.
That's right, yeah.
So you were 35 years old, I think would be the right age when you were here in Australia, and you said that you took out gold. Do you mind just talking about that experience, your trip to Australia? Have you been since? And then what did you make of that team of guys that you played with here in Australia?
Oh, geez, great bunch of guys, and they were in such good shape and still tremendous players. We were really good. I mean, it was just so fun, and the people of Australia, we just really enjoyed it. And I'm trying to remember, there's a place, I think it's called Sally's Steakhouse, just absolutely fantastic in downtown Brisbane, right on the river, I believe.
The river runs right through the CBD of Brisbane, so it's a beautiful city.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. The people are just so darn friendly. And trying to remember Crown Lager.
Crown Lager is one of the beers here, yep.
Yeah, I remember that one was a good one.
Have you been to Australia since, or that was your only trip to our shores?
That was it, yeah. But love to go back again. I mean, it was fantastic. I'd love to see Sydney and some other places too, but maybe take I think you guys have Orient Express, don't you? Australian Orient Express or something that goes across the outback.
I think it's called the GAN, Ghan. That goes, I believe, from Adelaide, which is in South Australia. It goes up north into the Northern Territory, and I think it goes through to either beyond Alice Springs and up into Darwin, perhaps. But I'm showing my lack of Australian geography here at the moment on the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that's one of the most popular train rides. And then there's one that goes across from east to west as well. But there's two sort of famous train carriages that go across the country.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Because it's such a big country, I think it's as big as the contiguous United States. So
exactly right. We only have a population into the mid 20 millions, but yeah, we're the size pretty much of the USA, which has upwards of 300 million.
Right.
It's just been fantastic, Chris, to have a chance to chat with you again. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to relive your career in basketball, and thanks again for coming on the show.
Pleasure. Hi to all you Aussies. We love you here in the U.S.
Great to know. So thanks again.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks for listening. I welcome your interaction with the show. You can suggest topics or guests you want to hear conversations with. Leave a voicemail just by visiting inallairness.com/voice. Click start recording, leave a message and press stop. You can even listen back before submitting. Press send and you're done. Time now to share another fantastic review from a fan of the show. This time thanks to Daniel Eade on the Australian iTunes store. Daniel's on Twitter at Daniel Eade, E-A-D-E. It's titled Highly Recommend, and it reads, "You will catch yourself reminiscing about basketball's Jordan/golden era over and over again as you listen to the In All Airness podcast. Adam is very professional throughout the interviews, and the guests are never shy to share their greatest memories. Highly recommend. Thanks very much, Daniel. Much appreciated, mate. Worldwide, the show currently has 69 reviews, 66 of which are on iTunes and 3 are on Stitcher. Thanks for your continued support. If you add a review, I'd love to read it out on a future episode. Your ratings and reviews are certainly one of the best ways to support the podcast. If you enjoy the show, please do tell your basketball-loving friends about it. Your word-of-mouth recommendations are definitely worth their weight in gold. Stay up to date with my podcast and subscribe to my monthly email newsletter. You'll receive exclusive details on upcoming podcast episodes, future high-profile guests to appear on the show, and much more. Simply visit inallairness.com/news. You can subscribe to my show in various ways. Apple Podcasts, visit inallairness.com/iTunes. On Android, visit inallairness.com/Android. Add it to your Stitcher playlist, inallairness.com/Stitcher. You can also subscribe on Pocket Casts, Player FM, TuneIn Radio, other podcatchers, and of course via the Podcasts app on your iOS device of choice.